Humans saw what the galaxy could not, a ship hidden in plain sight, cloaked in mystery and power. If you love this cosmic secret, hit subscribe and join us for more mind-blowing stories. Humans aboard the research vessel Orion Vanguard were traveling through a remote and uncharted part of the galaxy, far from any known star systems. The vast emptiness around them was filled with a quiet tension, and the crew felt both excitement and unease as they monitored their instruments. Every beep and flicker seemed more significant than usual. The lead scientist, Dr. Elena Kwan, leaned over her console, studying a series of unusual energy readings that had appeared on their sensors. The readings were unlike anything recorded in human history. They pulsed with irregular patterns, shifting in frequency and intensity, as if the source itself was alive. The crew exchanged uncertain glances, unsure whether to consider it a natural phenomenon or a signal from an advanced intelligence. As the Orion Vanguard moved closer to the source, the anomaly revealed itself as a massive asteroid, yet it was far from ordinary. The asteroid's surface shimmered faintly under the ship's lights. Strange electromagnetic waves interacting with the ship's sensors created a surreal, almost magical effect. Some crew members whispered that it looked like the asteroid was breathing. Dr. Kwan studied the data, her mind racing with possibilities. She hypothesized that the readings might be artificial, that some intelligence had embedded technology within the asteroid, and that humans might be the first species to notice it. Curiosity surged through the crew, blending with a cautious fear, because the unknown always carried risk. The crew debated their next move, some arguing to keep a safe distance and report back to Earth, while others insisted that they had come too far to turn back without investigation. The excitement of discovery outweighed caution, and the decision was made to approach. The ship's thrusters adjusted, guiding them closer to the asteroid. As the Orion Vanguard neared the object, the energy readings intensified. Small ripples of light danced across the sensors, colors shifting in ways no one had ever seen. The patterns almost felt intentional, as if someone or something was aware of their presence. Dr. Kwan called the crew together, explaining her theory that the asteroid might conceal a structure, an object deliberately hidden from conventional detection. She emphasized that this could represent technology far beyond human comprehension. The implications were enormous. The crew listened in silence, each person imagining the possibilities, wondering if humanity was about to make first contact with an advanced civilization. Tension grew as everyone realized that the next few hours could change their understanding of the universe forever. As they orbited the asteroid, the ship's scanners picked up faint irregularities, lines and edges that did not belong to natural rock formations. Shadows hinted at geometric patterns, something too precise to be formed by nature alone. Dr. Kwan instructed the crew to enhance their visual sensors. The results were astonishing. A faint outline emerged, almost invisible, but unmistakably artificial. The crew gasped, unable to believe what they were seeing. The asteroid was hiding something massive, something intentionally cloaked. Excitement and fear mingled as the crew tried to understand what they had found. The human mind struggled to process the idea that a structure large enough to be a spaceship could exist completely hidden, only revealed by subtle interactions with the asteroid's magnetic field. Some crew members joked nervously, while others were too stunned to speak. The realization sank in that they were witnessing a secret that no other humans, or perhaps no other species, had ever seen. The galaxy outside continued on as if nothing had happened, completely unaware of the silent observer within their midst. Dr. Kwan made a careful decision, instructing the crew to approach slowly, to document every detail, and to avoid any actions that might provoke the unknown presence. The Orion Vanguard moved closer, sensors alive with data, lights scanning the asteroid's surface in gentle sweeps. Every movement of the ship seemed magnified in importance. The crew's hearts raced, each person feeling the weight of history on their shoulders. The discovery could change the course of human knowledge, but it also carried dangers they could not yet imagine. The tension was palpable. A mix of wonder, fear, and determination filled the ship, as humans prepared to witness something that no one else in the galaxy would ever know about. Every moment felt like walking on the edge of a cosmic cliff. Each step forward, a gamble between revelation and disaster. Yet the drive to explore, to understand, to reach beyond the known pushed them onward. The Orion Vanguard hovered at the brink of the unknown, ready to see what the universe had been hiding. And humans were about to become the first witnesses of a secret that would remain invisible to the rest of the galaxy. Upon closer inspection, the crew of the Orion Vanguard realized that the strange readings from the asteroid were not coming from the rock itself, but from something completely different, hidden in plain sight. As they adjusted their sensors and enhanced the visual spectrum, the outlines of an enormous spacecraft began to emerge, though it remained almost entirely invisible, the edges flickering faintly against the asteroid's magnetic field. The crew stared in disbelief. Struggling to comprehend what they were seeing, it was a ship. But, unlike anything designed by humans, smooth curves and complex geometries formed patterns that seemed purposeful, almost alive. The size of it was staggering, easily larger than the Orion Vanguard, yet it hovered silently, as if aware of their presence. Dr. Elena Kwan tried to contain her excitement, her mind racing through possibilities. She suggested that the ship's invisibility might be the result of cloaking technology far beyond humanity's understanding. The patterns on the surface interacted with the asteroid's field, revealing hints of its structure, but leaving the majority hidden. Instruments failed to register its true form, making the human eyes the only witnesses. A mix of awe and fear gripped the crew, knowing that whatever technology this was, it had no precedent in the galaxy. And humans were seeing it first. As the Orion Vanguard drifted closer, faint vibrations ran through the ship, subtle enough to be noticed only by the keen senses of the crew. The air seemed charged, every light flicker, every hum of the engines felt amplified. The ship's presence seemed almost alive, as if it was observing them, waiting for a response. Crew members whispered nervously, their voices barely audible over the ship's systems. Some speculated that the craft could belong to an ancient civilization, long gone but still maintaining its watch. Others feared it could be a trap designed to lure explorers into a dangerous encounter. The human crew could not touch or scan it fully. Every attempt to interact with the ship was met with subtle interference. Sensors reading only static, communications bouncing back meaningless signals, yet the visual outlines told a story. Intricate panels and structures glimmered briefly as the asteroid's magnetic field shifted, giving fleeting glimpses of alien architecture. It was unlike any material humans had ever studied, a seamless fusion of metallic and organic forms, almost as if the ship had grown rather than been built. And each crew member felt a shiver of excitement and anxiety, knowing they were witnessing a marvel that no one else in the galaxy would ever see. Some of the younger crew members could hardly contain their curiosity, leaning over consoles, zooming in on every detail, pointing out elements that seemed to move subtly, as if the ship itself was alive. Dr. Kwan reminded them to stay calm, to document everything carefully, and to avoid unnecessary movements. Every decision carried weight, because one wrong action might trigger a response they could not predict. The crew understood that this was a unique moment in human history, and that they were entirely alone in witnessing it. The galaxy around them continued unaware, planets spinning, stars shining, civilizations busy with their own affairs, completely oblivious to the hidden presence in their midst. The ship remained perfectly still, yet its outlines shifted in response to the Orion Vanguard's approach, almost like a subtle acknowledgement. The crew speculated silently whether it was sentient or simply programmed to react to energy changes. The thought that they might be observed without their knowledge made the tension almost unbearable. Dr. Kwan took a deep breath, reminding herself and the team that fear should not overcome their scientific curiosity. Careful observation could reveal secrets about this advanced technology, secrets that might reshape humanity's understanding of life, intelligence, and civilization in the universe. As the humans hovered near the asteroid, the interplay of the magnetic field and the cloaked ship created ethereal visuals. Shimmering outlines, moving patterns, almost like a dance of lights. The crew could hardly believe their eyes. Some reached for cameras, knowing that instruments might not record accurately, hoping at least for visual documentation. The atmosphere on the ship became charged with energy, human minds racing with questions, ideas, and cautious excitement. The moment felt both timeless and fleeting, as though they had stepped into a space between reality and something far greater. Every member of the crew felt the weight of history pressing upon them. They were witnessing something the rest of the galaxy would never see. A ship invisible to all but human perception. A technology so advanced that it could exist in the same space as stars and asteroids without disturbing them, yet still interact subtly with human presence. The knowledge was both exhilarating and terrifying. A reminder that the universe was filled with mysteries far beyond humanity's current understanding, and that some secrets were meant to be discovered only by those willing to face the unknown. As the Orion Vanguard continued to orbit cautiously, documenting every flicker and shadow, Dr. Kwan knew the crew would remember this moment forever. The first undeniable proof that humans were not alone in witnessing the wonders of the galaxy, the cloaked ship remained silent, majestic, and unfathomable. A hidden marvel that challenged every assumption about life, technology, and the limits of perception. Humans alone held the memory of its existence, and the galaxy continued, completely unaware of the hidden intelligence lying in wait. Suddenly, the cloaked ship reacted. Subtle vibrations passed through the Orion Vanguard, barely noticeable, but enough to make the crew tense. Lights along the hull of the hidden ship flickered faintly, pulsing in a rhythm that seemed deliberate, yet no instrument could measure it. The energy readings fluctuated wildly, as if the ship itself were alive, observing, testing, or communicating in a way humans could not yet understand. The crew exchanged worried glances, wondering if they had triggered something by approaching too closely. Fear mixed with awe as the realization sank in that the ship might be aware of them. Dr. Elena Kwan focused on the readings, her mind racing to make sense of the phenomenon. The patterns of energy seemed intelligent, reacting to the ship's movements, almost like a heartbeat or a pulse of awareness. She instructed the crew to maintain distance, avoid sudden movements, and document everything. Knowing that every observation could be crucial for understanding this advanced technology, tension filled the air, each crew member acutely aware that the cloaked ship could be far beyond any human capability in defense, observation, or even perception. As the ship hovered silently, subtle shifts in light revealed glimpses of its enormous structure. Panels that appeared to move or shimmer independently, edges that seemed to bend space slightly. Humans could perceive shapes and forms, but instruments recorded nothing, creating a strange dissonance between what was visible to the eyes and what the sensors captured. Some crew members whispered nervously about the possibility of alien intelligence so advanced that it could manipulate reality around it. The idea both fascinated and terrified them. The Orion Vanguard seemed tiny, fragile, and almost insignificant in comparison. Crew members debated quietly whether to attempt communication. Unsure if it would be wise to signal the ship, any transmission could be interpreted as a threat or intrusion. Dr. Kwan reminded them that caution was essential, yet curiosity burned strongly. The opportunity to observe a civilization capable of cloaking an entire ship in space was unprecedented. Humans had never faced something like this, and the ethical questions weighed heavily. Could they interact safely? Or would their actions have consequences they could not foresee? Each moment of hesitation added to the suspense, the air on the ship almost electric with anticipation. Then, without warning, a faint ripple of energy extended from the cloaked ship toward the Orion Vanguard. Subtle, almost imperceptible, but enough to make the human crew instinctively tense. Lights on the hidden ship shimmered brighter for a few seconds, patterns flowing across its surface. Like a silent message, yet it remained undecipherable. The humans could only guess at its meaning. The alien presence seemed to be testing them, observing reactions, and assessing intentions. The psychological impact on the crew was immense, a mixture of wonder, fear, and the humbling awareness of how small humanity really was. Some crew members felt a strange sense of being watched, not like being observed through cameras or sensors, but directly, as if the ship itself were aware of their thoughts, their movements, even their emotions. The human mind struggled to comprehend it. Dr. Kwan encouraged everyone to focus on recording details and maintaining composure, reminding them that panic could lead to mistakes. Yet the sheer scale of the encounter made calm nearly impossible. Each second stretched endlessly. as humans hovered in silent awe before a presence the rest of the galaxy would never know existed. The Orion Vanguard's instruments continued to record null results, showing nothing more than background cosmic noise. Yet human eyes saw the cloak fluctuate, patterns dancing briefly and then disappearing. Every flicker carried an almost tangible weight, like a language humans could not yet understand. Crew members felt both exhilarated and anxious, knowing they were witnessing something monumental, something that might redefine humanity's understanding of technology. Intelligence and the universe itself, the tension was so thick it could almost be felt physically. Dr. Kwan suggested that the ship's cloak might have limitations, responding to human proximity or certain energy emissions. But its purpose remained mysterious. Theories flew rapidly through the crew's minds, each one more speculative than the last. They debated whether the ship was a sentient guardian, a scout, or an ancient relic maintaining observation over the galaxy. Yet no conclusion felt certain. The hidden craft remained a puzzle, its silence more profound than any communication could be. As the human crew continued to observe, the subtle activations of the ship became a pattern, faint pulses and light fluctuations at intervals that suggested deliberate design, but still indecipherable. Humans could only watch and record, understanding that their presence alone was a rare privilege, an encounter that no one else could ever witness. The galaxy outside remained completely unaware. Civilizations continued their routines. Stars burned on as usual. Wars and diplomacy unfolded across distant worlds, all while an immense cloaked intelligence hovered silently, visible only to the eyes of the humans on the Orion Vanguard. By the end of their observation, every crew member carried a mixture of awe, fear, and a sense of responsibility. The realization that they alone had witnessed the activation of something far beyond human understanding weighed heavily. Dr. Kwan reflected on the fact that this encounter would remain their secret, a reminder that the universe was filled with wonders hidden in plain sight, waiting for the few who dared to explore the unknown. Humans had become the first witnesses of a silent power, cloaked not just in technology, but in mystery itself. Dr. Elena Kwan decided that they could not remain mere observers. She suggested trying a cautious attempt at communication, hoping to establish contact with the cloaked ship. The idea filled the crew with nervous anticipation. Every person on board knew that this could be the most significant moment in human history. Yet it also carried immense risk. The ship remained silent and invisible to all instruments, making the attempt almost entirely speculative. But human curiosity and the need to understand the unknown outweighed caution. The crew prepared a signal, a digital pulse encoded in quantum frequencies, designed to be as non-intrusive as possible while still detectable. Every calculation was double-checked, every possible risk considered. The ship's systems hummed as the transmission began, tiny bursts of energy sent outward toward the hidden craft. Dr. Kwan watched anxiously, her hands hovering over the console. Every flicker on the screen scrutinized for any sign of a response. The atmosphere on the Orion Vanguard was electric, a mix of fear, excitement, and wonder. For a long moment, nothing happened. The ship remained perfectly silent. No lights flickered. No energy readings changed. It was as if the signal had been absorbed into the void. Crew members whispered in low tones, debating whether the transmission had been noticed at all. Some feared that they had alerted the ship to their presence in a way that might be dangerous, while others held on to hope that the advanced craft was simply analyzing their attempt, and that a response, if it came, would be measured and deliberate. Dr. Kwan reminded everyone to remain patient, explaining that they might not understand the response even if it occurred. The alien technology could operate on timescales or in modes beyond human comprehension. The crew settled into tense observation, scanning for the faintest change, each person aware that they were witnessing something no one else in the galaxy would ever see, even as the galaxy itself carried on, oblivious, with stars burning, planets orbiting, and civilizations going about their ordinary lives. Suddenly, a faint shimmer appeared along the edges of the cloaked ship, a subtle reaction to the human transmission. The outlines flickered for a brief instant, like a message in a language they could not decipher. The crew held their breath. Their excitement mingled with apprehension. The ship's movements were almost imperceptible, a tiny shift in orientation, as if it were acknowledging the signal, yet still remaining largely invisible and silent. Dr. Kwan tried to interpret the pattern, but it was beyond any human logic, more like a thought than a physical action. The crew speculated among themselves about what the reaction meant. Theories ranged from a simple acknowledgement to a complex analysis of their intentions. Every flicker, every shift seemed calculated, deliberate, and intelligent. Humans realized that whatever they were dealing with, it was far more advanced than anything they had ever imagined. The possibility that the ship was sentient became more plausible with each passing moment, and the weight of that realization pressed on them heavily. Some crew members began to feel the psychological pressure, the stress of being observed by something so incomprehensible, the uncertainty about the ship's intentions, and the knowledge that their actions could carry consequences across the galaxy. Dr. Kwan encouraged everyone to focus on documentation and observation, explaining that understanding could only come through careful, patient study. The crew nodded, trying to calm their racing thoughts. Knowing that fear or rash action could endanger both themselves and the unprecedented opportunity to learn. Hours passed with subtle changes. The ship reacted only to certain wavelengths, faintly glowing panels appearing briefly before disappearing, energy patterns rippling across the surface like waves in a pond. Humans recorded everything meticulously, realizing that these fleeting moments might contain the only clues about the ship's nature. The crew felt both honored and burdened, knowing they were the sole witnesses to an intelligence the galaxy would never notice. The tension was almost unbearable, each crew member feeling both the thrill and the danger of the encounter. As the observation continued, Dr. Kwan reflected on the ethical implications of their attempt. She understood that humans were entering a realm far beyond their comprehension, that even a well-intentioned signal could be misinterpreted by a being capable of far greater understanding. The responsibility weighed heavily on her, knowing that these decisions were not just scientific, but potentially existential, and that the rest of humanity would never know of the risks they had taken or the marvels they had witnessed. Finally, the crew realized that the ship's responses, subtle as they were, had given them their first hint of interaction. A quiet acknowledgement that humans existed, that they were being watched, and that communication, in some form, might be possible in the future. Yet for now, the mystery remained. The ship cloaked silent and overwhelmingly powerful, and the Orion Vanguard drifted in awe, carrying the knowledge that humanity had taken its first careful step into contact with a presence the galaxy would never detect. For a fleeting moment, the cloaked ship revealed itself in a way no human had ever seen before. A section of its massive hull shimmered against the asteroid's magnetic field, intricate patterns and geometric structures flickering into view. The crew of the Orion Vanguard gasped, eyes wide with disbelief and awe. Cameras clicked, recording what human instruments could barely detect. The ship seemed almost alive, its surface shifting and glimmering, as if it were aware of every gaze, every thought, every subtle movement of the humans watching it. Dr. Elena Kwan could hardly contain her excitement, her mind racing to analyze the patterns, the materials, the structure. Yet it was unlike anything ever documented. Smooth curves intertwined with sharp angles, panels that appeared to float independently, and shapes that defied human engineering principles. The ship's design seemed to blend technology and organic forms in a way that suggested not just intelligence, but artistry, a civilization capable of creating beauty and function together on a scale unimaginable to humanity. Crew members leaned forward, pointing out details as they appeared. Tiny lights flickering across the hull like veins of energy, mysterious conduits forming shapes that might have been functional, or perhaps symbolic. Each flash seemed intentional, as though the ship were signaling in a language humans could not yet comprehend. The excitement on the bridge was electric, tempered only by the awe and fear of dealing with something so completely beyond human understanding. The galaxy outside continued its quiet routine, oblivious to the spectacle playing out near a lonely asteroid. The brief visibility of the ship allowed the crew to see its massive scale, larger than most human starships, yet elegantly designed, capable of moving silently through space without detection. The thought that such a vessel existed undisturbed, invisible to every civilization in the galaxy, filled the crew with wonder and humility. They were witnessing a secret the universe had kept hidden, a marvel meant to remain unseen. And yet, for this instant, humanity had been granted a glimpse, a privilege both thrilling and terrifying. As the flicker of visibility faded, the crew realized that the ship's cloak was adaptive, responding to the presence of the Orion Vanguard, showing them just enough to acknowledge observation, but never revealing its full form. The brief exposure created more questions than answers. What technology allowed such perfect invisibility? How did it manipulate magnetic fields to become partially visible? And, most importantly, what were the intentions of those who had built it? Humans had never faced a mystery of such scale, and every instinct urged caution, even as curiosity burned brightly. The ship's subtle movements suggested intelligence, its reactions measured, deliberate, yet impossible to decode. Crew members speculated whether it was observing them, learning from their behavior, or simply maintaining a routine while humans happened to be nearby. The idea that they were being studied, rather than interacting with equals, filled the Orion Vanguard's crew with a mixture of humility and excitement. They were intruders in a silent cosmic dance, and the rules were not theirs to know. Dr. Kwan reminded everyone to document meticulously, to record every flicker, every pattern, every minute change, knowing that these brief glimpses might be the only evidence humanity would ever have of this advanced intelligence. Cameras and sensors captured faint outlines. Energy readings fluctuated with each exposure, yet every recording was incomplete. Instruments incapable of fully grasping the advanced technology, leaving human eyes as the primary witnesses, a responsibility that weighed heavily on all of them. The moment passed almost as quickly as it had arrived, the cloak fully restored, leaving only the asteroid behind, seemingly ordinary once more. Crew members exchanged quiet, stunned words, each person trying to comprehend what they had seen. The enormity of the encounter settled over the ship. An almost sacred silence filled the bridge. The galaxy beyond continued unknowingly, stars shining, planets orbiting, civilizations evolving, all while a hidden observer remained in place, cloaked and undisturbed. The humans reflected on what the brief revelation meant, understanding that they were witnessing technology and intelligence beyond comprehension, a presence that could observe countless worlds without detection, and yet had chosen to reveal itself, even briefly, to them alone. The privilege was enormous, but so was the responsibility. Humans now carried knowledge that could not be shared with the galaxy without risking consequences they could not predict. A secret of such magnitude, it could change history if ever revealed. By the time the Orion Vanguard regained composure, the reality of their position sank in. Humans had seen something extraordinary, something invisible to the rest of the universe, and for that moment, they were alone as witnesses to a marvel no one else could perceive. The ship remained cloaked, enigmatic, and powerful, leaving humanity with awe, questions, and the heavy realization that some secrets of the universe were meant to remain unseen. Yet occasionally, the veil lifted, even if only for a fleeting instant. For those brave enough to watch, the crew of the Orion Vanguard gathered in the main observation room, the weight of their discovery pressing heavily on every mind. The cloaked ship remained hidden once again, but the memory of its brief revelation lingered, vivid and overwhelming. Debates began quietly at first, some crew members arguing that they must report the encounter immediately to Earth, believing that humanity had a right to know of advanced life and technology, while others, including Dr. Elena Kwan, cautioned restraint, warning that disclosure could trigger fear, panic, or even galactic conflict. The ethical dilemma became the center of every conversation. The questions were endless and complex. What responsibility did humans have to civilizations far more advanced than themselves? Was it right to reveal something the galaxy had never noticed? Could humanity handle knowledge of this scale without creating chaos? Crew members argued passionately, some insisting that hiding the truth was wrong, that science demanded transparency and exploration, while others feared that revealing the existence of a cloaked ship could destabilize political powers, military alliances, and even the social structure of human civilization. Dr. Kwan reminded the crew that they were not dealing with ordinary technology, the ship's ability to remain invisible, undetectable to sensors, and yet respond intelligently to human presence, implied a level of understanding far beyond anything humans had achieved. Even brief interaction could have unforeseen consequences. She urged everyone to consider the long-term ramifications, to think beyond immediate excitement, and to recognize that some secrets were powerful precisely because they were hidden. Tension rose as these points were discussed, every word measured against the fear of the unknown. Psychological stress began to affect the crew. Sleep was shallow, and conversations were colored by anxiety and awe. Some felt the burden of knowledge personally, as if carrying the weight of the entire galaxy on their shoulders. Others wrestled with frustration at being unable to communicate with the ship. The inability to understand its purpose or intentions created a sense of helplessness. Yet the human drive to explore and comprehend remained strong. The crew knew they had witnessed something historic, something no one else could ever verify, and the responsibility of secrecy fell entirely on them. The debate also turned inward, raising questions about humanity itself. Were humans ready to handle such contact? Could they approach it with wisdom rather than fear? Or would the discovery only lead to conflict and misuse? Dr. Kwan emphasized that caution was not cowardice, but an acknowledgement of human limitations. The crew reflected on how small and fragile they were in comparison to a civilization capable of creating such cloaking technology. The ethical questions were entwined with humility, reminding humans that not all knowledge should be pursued recklessly. Some crew members argued for observation alone, suggesting that the Orion Vanguard continue to study the ship from a distance, documenting every movement, every reaction, without revealing humanity's presence to the galaxy. This cautious approach appealed to Dr. Kwan, who saw it as a way to honor both scientific curiosity and ethical responsibility. The crew debated strategies, weighing the risk of accidental exposure against the benefit of long-term observation, understanding that patience could yield knowledge far beyond what a hasty decision might achieve. As hours passed, the crew slowly reached consensus, agreeing that the discovery would remain classified, their observations carefully logged and secured, knowledge shared only among themselves. The decision brought relief, but also a lingering tension. Everyone understood that they were guardians of a secret with potentially galaxy-altering implications. Humans had become the sole witnesses of something far greater than themselves, and the responsibility of that knowledge would shape their lives forever. Despite the tension, the moment also inspired awe, a sense of privilege that they were chosen, even inadvertently, to witness intelligence and technology hidden from the galaxy. The experience reminded them of humanity's smallness, but also its potential. The discovery could teach lessons about patience, caution, and the value of observation before action. The crew felt a mixture of pride and humility, realizing that they had glimpsed a level of civilization they could barely imagine. Yet they were entrusted to carry the memory responsibly. As the Orion Vanguard prepared to leave the system, the ethical dilemma transformed into a quiet resolve. Humans had to respect the cloaked ship, its intelligence, and the galaxy's obliviousness. The crew silently vowed to protect their knowledge, to study carefully, and to act only with wisdom in the future. The burden of secrecy became both a challenge and a privilege, a reminder that some discoveries were not meant for immediate disclosure, but for careful understanding, and that humanity's journey into the stars required patience, caution, and reverence for the unknown. In the silence of space, the crew reflected on what it meant to witness something invisible to everyone else. The galaxy continued, unaware, civilizations carried on, and stars shone. All while humans bore the knowledge of a cloaked intelligence far beyond their comprehension. The weight of the secret pressed on them, but also inspired them, a quiet understanding that some truths were meant to remain hidden, and that the role of the witness carried as much responsibility as wonder. The Orion Vanguard slowly began its departure from the system, leaving the cloaked ship and the shimmering asteroid behind. A quiet tension filled the ship as the crew reflected on what they had witnessed. Every person on board felt the weight of the experience, knowing that they were the only humans ever to have seen the hidden craft. Dr. Elena Kwan stared at the fading outlines in her mind. replaying every flicker, every shimmer, every subtle pulse of energy that had made the impossible real. The galaxy outside continued on its usual course, completely unaware of the hidden intelligence lying silently in the void. As the ship moved farther away, crew members discussed what they had learned, trying to process the enormity of the encounter. The glimpses of the cloaked ship had been brief, but unforgettable, and the questions it raised were endless. What civilization had created such technology? How did they maintain invisibility on such a massive scale? And why had they chosen to remain unseen? Each thought carried a mixture of awe, fear, and deep curiosity. The humans had touched a secret the universe had kept hidden for reasons they could only guess. The silence on the bridge was almost sacred, broken only by the soft hum of the Orion Vanguard's engines and the occasional beep of sensors scanning empty space. Humans reflected on their own place in the cosmos. Feeling both tiny and extraordinary, they had witnessed a presence that could observe countless worlds without detection. Yet, it had allowed humans, a relatively young and fragile species, to see even a fragment of its existence. The responsibility weighed heavily on them, and each crew member felt the enormity of being alone in such knowledge. Dr. Kwan led discussions about how to interpret what they had observed, emphasizing careful reflection and patience. She reminded the crew that the cloaked ship's actions could not yet be understood, and that attempting to force answers could have dangerous consequences. The experience had taught them humility, and that human understanding was limited compared to the intelligence that had created the hidden craft. Yet, the encounter had also inspired hope, showing that humans were capable of reaching and observing wonders far beyond previous imagination. As days passed, the crew maintained careful observation from a distance, documenting everything possible without disturbing the cloaked ship. Each flicker, each energy pulse, each subtle movement became a critical piece of a puzzle that might never be fully solved. Humans felt the thrill of discovery, tempered with the caution of knowing they were dealing with forces beyond their control. The tension of the unknown hung over them. But so did the excitement of being the first witnesses to something the galaxy would never see. Crew members shared quiet conversations about the philosophical implications, discussing what it meant to encounter a presence so advanced, a civilization so secretive, and the impact this knowledge might have on humanity if ever revealed. They debated the idea of secrecy, understanding that some truths were too powerful to share without preparation. Yet they also felt privileged, knowing they had glimpsed a marvel invisible to the rest of the galaxy, and that human eyes had captured what no instruments could fully record. The journey home became a time of reflection, each person contemplating the balance between discovery and responsibility. The cloaked ship had shown them that the universe was far more complex than they had imagined, and that some civilizations chose observation over interaction. Invisibility over exposure, humans began to internalize the lesson that knowledge alone was not enough, that wisdom and restraint were essential when facing powers beyond comprehension, and that patience could be as valuable as action. At night, as the crew rested, Dr. Kwan stared at the stars through the observation deck, imagining the cloaked ship continuing its silent patrol or study, floating among asteroids and distant stars, invisible to everyone else. She felt a mixture of wonder and humility, knowing that humans had been granted a rare and fleeting privilege, and that their lives would be shaped by the memory of this encounter for years to come. Each flicker of recollection carrying both the thrill of discovery and the gravity of responsibility. The crew also reflected on what humanity might learn in the future, understanding that this encounter was only a small glimpse of the universe's vast intelligence, that civilizations far older and more advanced than humans existed quietly, observing and protecting knowledge in ways that humans had yet to comprehend. The memory of the cloaked ship became a quiet inspiration, a symbol of what could be achieved, and the mysteries still waiting to be uncovered. The galaxy moved on unaware, yet humans carried the secret with them, silently part of a story no one else would ever know. By the time the Orion Vanguard exited the uncharted system, the crew had settled into a reflective silence, each person absorbed in their thoughts, carrying the memory of the hidden ship, the privilege of observation, and the burden of knowledge. humans realized that they had experienced something extraordinary, something that would remain unique in all of history, a silent witness to a marvel that the galaxy itself could never perceive, and that their lives had been changed forever by the glimpse of an intelligence far beyond human understanding. Back on Earth, the crew of the Orion Vanguard carefully secured all logs, recordings, and observations. The knowledge of the cloaked ship and its fleeting reveal weighed heavily on them. Every member understood that this was a secret unlike any other, something that could alter human perception of the universe if revealed prematurely. Dr. Elena Kwan insisted that the encounter remain classified, not out of fear, but out of responsibility. Knowing that humanity might not yet be ready to comprehend or handle the implications of such advanced intelligence, the crew recorded detailed accounts of everything they had witnessed, including the faint outlines, shimmering patterns, and subtle pulses of energy that had suggested awareness from the cloaked ship. Each entry was meticulously documented, ensuring that future generations could study the events without risking exposure. The galaxy continued oblivious. Stars burning, planets orbiting, civilizations thriving, unaware that humans had glimpsed something entirely hidden, a presence far beyond their understanding, observing silently. In quiet moments, the crew reflected on the significance of being the sole witnesses. A mixture of pride and humility filling each heart, humans realized they had seen technology and intelligence that could manipulate perception, remain invisible, and yet respond subtly to their presence. They were custodians of a truth that no other eyes would ever perceive. The responsibility of carrying such knowledge was immense, yet it was balanced by the awe of having witnessed a marvel that confirmed humanity was not alone in experiencing wonders of the universe. Dr. Kwan encouraged the crew to contemplate the lessons from the encounter. The importance of patience, observation, and restraint. They had learned that some truths were too powerful to reveal hastily, that advanced civilizations might choose observation over contact, and that wisdom sometimes required knowing when to act and when to remain silent. The humans also understood the fragility of their own species, the limits of human understanding in the face of intelligence so far beyond their own. Each crew member dealt with the psychological impact differently, some writing personal reflections, others quietly staring at the stars, imagining the cloaked ship continuing its patrol, invisible to the rest of the galaxy, yet fully aware of its surroundings. A guardian, observer, or explorer of its own making, humans had seen just a fraction of its existence. Yet that fraction was enough to challenge every assumption about the universe, about life, and about intelligence. Their understanding of possibility had expanded in ways that words could barely describe. The secrecy of the discovery became a shared bond, an invisible thread connecting the crew, each person aware that they carried a memory the rest of humanity, and indeed the galaxy, would never share. They discussed the need to protect the logs, to avoid accidental disclosure, and to continue studying the data without ever revealing the location or nature of the cloaked ship. It was a silent pact, a responsibility greater than any mission they had undertaken. The weight of knowing something so extraordinary pressed on them, yet it also inspired a sense of purpose and wonder. Dr. Kwan often spoke to the crew about the bigger picture, that their encounter was a glimpse of what the universe held beyond human perception, and that the responsibility of witnessing such secrets was part of humanity's evolution. Humans had a rare opportunity to learn, to grow intellectually and ethically. By understanding that some intelligence operated on scales, timescales, and principles far beyond human comprehension, the experience instilled a humility that tempered their curiosity with caution, a lesson they would carry forever. In private moments, the crew imagined what the cloaked ship civilization might be like, what had driven them to remain hidden, how long they had existed, and what they had observed across countless worlds. Questions multiplied. Yet answers remained elusive. The humans understood that some mysteries were meant to be admired without interference, to inspire without direct engagement. The galaxy went on as usual, but for the crew, a silent presence now existed, shaping their understanding of what lay beyond, unseen and eternal. Over time, the Orion Vanguard's mission became legendary among the crew for the experience rather than its scientific output. The memory of witnessing the cloaked ship remained vivid, influencing their thinking, their teaching, and even their personal philosophies. Humanity had been granted a rare privilege: to see the invisible, to be the sole bearers of a secret that no other civilization would ever know. It was a moment that defined them, quietly shaping the future of their understanding and ambition. As they reflected on the encounter, the crew understood that their story would remain hidden, a legacy of knowledge meant to be safeguarded. Yet the inspiration it provided would continue, reminding them that the universe was far larger, more mysterious, and more intelligent than humanity had ever imagined, and that some truths were never meant for the eyes of the many, only for the few who could bear the wonder and responsibility of knowing. The cloaked ship continued its silent vigil, and humans, alone, remembered